Hello friends, welcome to the Jazz Ranch. This is Herbie, my favorite guy. And you know, I have a quote for you from Albert Schweitzer. He said, there are two means of refuge from the miseries of life: music and cats. Herbie's a cool cat. I have another quote for you from Albert Einstein. He said this: if I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician. I often think in music. I live my daydreams in music, and I see my life in terms of music. How about that? Anyway, I'm going to continue now. This is part 3 of the modes, and I'm going to be applying the modes of the major scale to the song Autumn Leaves. And I'm going to be playing in the key of F and D minor relative to D minor. I'm going to show you how to use one scale on that song, plus some alterations, some approach tones and target tones, and some chromaticism. So here we go with the modes part 3. So what I want to do for you primarily in part 3 is to explain how I'm using the modes on the song Autumn Leaves. And I'm going to play for you my interpretation of it with a backing band. And the solo is going to be advanced, but underneath it, I want you to see that scale. I want you to see that F scale or that D minor scale, relative minor scale. I want you to see that going on underneath what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of complicated things probably in this solo, but underneath it, if I don't have that foundation or that basis with which to work with, then I don't know what I'm doing. I'm out in la la land and I'm just faking it. I'm playing by ear, and that's not good enough unless you're some kind of a genius. If you're Aragoner, then you can just play by ear and you can understand all the principles that I'm talking about without having to understand them in a mental or a intellectual way. But most of us need to have some kind of combination of using our ears, our talents, our musical abilities that come natural to us, and our ears, and also our intellect. And this is an intellectual concept, but it's a very important one. In other words, like, you can't build a house without a foundation. That's what I'm talking about. This is the foundation for the structure of the songs that you're going to play. The modes. Okay, now I want to show you how to use the modes in a specific song so that we apply them and make them practical. And the song is Autumn Leaves, and I did this in the first video, but I'm going to go do it a little further and talk a little bit more about it in this video. So we know that I'm going to be playing into the key of F. So we know that the scale we're working with is F major with 1 flat, B flat being the, so now the first chord starts on the 2 chord of the major. Now I should also point out that this tune ends in the relative minor, so you might say that this is in D minor, and not F major, but the key signature is F major 1 flat, which is the same for the relative minor or the relative major. So it's the same key whether it be minor or major, but it does end on the minor chord, so we can say it's D minor if you prefer. But I'm going to make it simpler for you by saying that the first chord is the 2 chord of F, which is now Dorian. We know 2 is F. We know that G is the second step of what major scale? F major. So we know it's Dorian. So now I'm going to play an F scale starting on G. So that I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. So like G minor 7, Dorian. Then there's a C7 there, which is Mixolydian. That's the Mixolydian scale. Then it's F major 7, which of course is Ionian. And then it's B flat, which is the 4 chord, which is Lydian, I mean. Now that has that E natural in it, you see. Then it goes. Now there's the Locrian. So that's the diminished, or we call it half diminished chord, which is also the F scale starting on E. You see that? Now this next chord is altered. It should be normally in that key, 3 would be A minor, but we have now an A major so that we can have, the dominant 7th chord, which is approaching a D minor. What is dominant of D minor? A7. So we can't use A minor 7. We have to have a C sharp, which is the leading tone, to D. Now this is an interesting part. Right here you see that it doesn't go like that, doesn't hit the B flat, hits a B natural. So both of those notes are altered. The B flat is altered and the C is altered to fit what you would call a borrowed chord, I guess. In other words, borrowed from the key of D. So we have that, it's 5 of D. So it doesn't matter whether it's D or D minor. 5 is going to be the A7. Now, if it had a flat 9 in it, it would be, if the melody went like that, you had a flat 9, now you'd have a different scale. But we're going to just use a Mixolydian scale in D. And that's it, which is A7 with that flat 7. You see? So now, that's the A section. Now, on the B section, the bridge, it just repeats. It just does 2, 5, 1 into D minor. And then it does 2, 5, 1 into F major. And then 2, 5, 1 into D minor again. Then it goes down in steps. And it gets to this chord, the 4 chord. And then the 5 chord. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you use these modes in a practical way to create melodies, and the importance of target tones and approach tones and passing tones. Continuing now, in the first part of this series on modes, I talked about the idea that you have to make these practical, and they're just scales. In other words, they're a roadmap, or they're a plan for improvisation. They're a means to an end. They're not the end. The end is that you want to create melodies, but you want to use the notes that are in the scale. So, if I'm playing the Dorian scale, going to the Mixolydian, I'm really using the F scale all the way. But I have to know what are the target tones of each chord. So you think this is going to be easy? No. You have to know that in the case of the first chord, which is G minor 7, that the target tones are also the chord tones, G, B flat, D, and F. So those are the most important tones when you're playing the scale. The other notes are passing tones, so that's target, passing, target tone, passing tone, target tone, passing tone. So you don't want to land on a strong beat on a passing tone. It would sound like this. Well, it's not so bad, but You know, that doesn't sound so good. It's better to go. Or, in other words, particularly on beat 1, you want to have a good target tone, which is a chord tone. So you're using the modes and you're using these scales, which are just different scales that are created from the F major scale. I'm pretty much playing, I can play the complete chord progression just playing on that scale like this. Notice I put that note in there for the A7. But you see, that's all F scale, that's all it is. So maybe it doesn't sound wrong anywhere, you know. But the thing is, it doesn't have the target tones, it doesn't have the approach tones. So when I create melodies, I'm using that F scale now, but I'm using the target tones that are specific to each chord as I play it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 of G minor 7, 1, 2, 3, 4 of C7 Mixolydian, 1, 2, 3, 4 of F Ionian, 1, 2, 3, 4 of B flat, which is Lydian, 1, 2, 3, 4 of E minor 7 flat 5, which is Locrian, and then we have the 3 chord, which is dominant, which approaches the 6 chord, which is Aeolian. So now let's just see. Let's try to play those scales now and show the target tones. You see, now I'm playing less notes, but even if I played eighth notes, the same thing applies. You want to try to play target tones in the right places. I should point out that one of the most important note in any chord, I think, is the third. I mean, the root is important, so you know what it's grounded on. But the third is very exclusive to that chord. That's why I did the C sharp on the A7. So I'm strengthening the sound of that chord, that dominant 7th chord, by playing the third in my melody. Again, it was like this. Like that. There's the third of the A7, you know. I'm getting that B flat in there now. Oh, that one is, yeah. So I'm still on that F scale, you see. So the target tone, approach tone, or a passing tone idea has to be linked up with this modal system. In other words, the modes are just a means to an end. The end result is to create good melodies, so you have to use the passing tones and target tones the right way. And I have videos out on this, so like, you know, watch those videos on what I call introductions to improvisation. Here I'm talking more about the modes, but on those other videos I'm talking a lot about the target tones and the passing tones. Now the thing I want you to understand about playing modes and why to learn them, you know, on a song like Autumn Leaves, or any song, is that they're the foundation for your improvisation. Like the house needs a foundation. In other words, the underlying concept or principle that is going on no matter what I'm doing. If I'm playing advanced improvisation or simple improvisation, that's what's going on. I'm playing, you know, here. Alteration in there. You see, so it's that scale. That's That's the underlying foundation of what I'm doing. Everything else has to do with bebop concepts and approach tone concepts and target tones and all the other things I've talked about in improvisation. But this is the basic thing you have to understand, is the modes. What scales are the basic scales that you're working with? And if you're working within a tune that's diatonic like Autumn Leaves, it's just really one scale except for that last chord going to the D minor, that A7 altered there. That A dominant 7th with has the C sharp. The rest of it I can play as I illustrated, all on the F scale. You see, D minor relative to F major. So you have to understand that first before you can do the more elaborate things, which I'm going to talk about in future videos, or in videos that I have more on the bebop principles and the principles of improvisation, where you're using target tones, approach tones, and chromatic approaches, and bebop kind of concepts like this. That kind of thing. In other words, I'm altering now. I'm altering the scale. I'm not just playing on the F scale anymore. I'm playing these notes up here, you know? Like, there's the F scale. I'm playing, particularly on the dominant 7th chords, I'm playing altered 7ths, which have flat 9s and sharp 9s and that kind of thing. So you want to look at those videos that I've done on improvisation. But if you need to get this first, you need to understand the basic underlying foundation of a house and the underlying foundation of music and scales and the modes. Signing off from the Jazz Ranch, that concludes my series, 3-part series on the modes of the major scale. Now we can do the modes of the minor scale, relative minor scale, or some other scales if you want. But so far now, I hope you enjoyed this, and you will write to me and give me time to respond. I try to respond to all comments and all the emails that I get. Until next time, send me your requests. And don't forget, Hermie's still up there looking down on us with pity, saying, swing loose. And we'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.